Thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate it. I'm John McNamara, one of the senior inventors in the Hersley Lab. We're here today with cloud gurus from around Hersley. We've got Dr. Adrian Warman. Hello, Adrian. We've got Guy Barden. Hello, Guy. We've got Matt Whitehead.
Hiya, hello.
And we've got Steve Upton.
Hey there.
And incredibly, we have the still picture of Rob Phippen, who has managed to escape just as the hangout began. But hopefully Rob will come back to us at some point and talk to us about integration. So let's give him a chance to do that. So if I can simply ask you guys, got any questions or comments, please tweet them into #NCSU Pathfinder, and we'll do our very best to answer them. And welcome to Hersley. Okay, so first question I should ask the panel is, when we say cloud technology, what do we actually mean by that? Hello, Rob.
Hello.
You scamp. What do we actually mean by cloud technology? Guy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll field this one and take us away. So what we're really talking about is moving away from what we traditionally would call sort of on-premise hardware, so that rather than having a defined set of hardware like your laptop or a desktop or a big VAX box, if you want to go back many years, you now look at thin clients running sort of in your hands, like your iPod, your mobile phone, your iPad, not iPod, your Apple Mac laptop, and then you just sort of request resources you need it out in what we call the cloud. So it's banks of data centers, and they're there to create virtual machines for you to use as you wish. So if you want sort of a small 2-core machine with a couple of gig of RAM, you can just request that and then use it through a thin client login. And it works on a sort of pay-as-you-use model, so it just costs you cents to keep something that small going for sort of week on week. If you don't want it, you can bin it and get something new as and when you want. I mean, IBM now sort of are starting to take this a bit further and use this as a service model and to try and deliver developer value into this cloud. So rather than just offering you computing resource, memory resource, we're now trying to offer value and ease of use, all stored away from having to maintain your own hardware in your house.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and I'd particularly emphasise something that Guy was saying a moment ago, in that it's not just about the technology and the ease with which you can connect from a device that you have locally through to this nebulous cloud storage processing capability. Yes, that's incredibly important. But another very important aspect of that is changing the way in which you're thinking about problems, so that originally you might have been thinking about, okay, I'm going to have some processing capability here, I'm going to have some data storage capability there, and so on. And you're starting to design the solution, thinking in terms of the constraints of the resources that you have access to. But when you're talking about a cloud technology, or more importantly, a cloud-based solution, you're not going to get very far until you start thinking in terms of what cloud actually gives you, which is scalability as well as the dynamic capability in terms of the resources and access that you have.
Awesome. Anyone got anything further to add on to Adrian and Guy's description?
Yeah, I think that concept of scalability is really important in terms of cloud, because I think we're moving from a point where you have to plan an application and the amount it's going to scale up front, set an upper limit to the number of customers or users you can cope within your system, and live within those constraints, to an environment where you can start by catering for a small number of users, and inherently built into the technologies you use is this ability to to scale horizontally, almost ad infinitum, as your demands grow. So I think that inherent scalability of your application, starting small, seeing how something goes, and being able to grow it, is not only important for big enterprises that we work with, but also with small businesses and individuals, where you don't want to pay up front for a bit of kit that's really heavyweight because you might one day need it. You want to start small and grow elastically. So scalability, I think, is a really, really key thing about cloud.
I'd add one more aspect, and I think it's been mentioned already, but I'd like to kind of draw it out for one or two kinds of user. And that is ease of use, and it just takes away some of the pains that perhaps you used to get when dealing with software in the on-premise world. So for your kind of systems administrator, it lets them automate many of the things that they might have had to do manually, like installation. For developers, it's great because they may not even need to have to install any software at all, and can just get started developing code really quickly. And then last of all, you know, at the kind of highest level, the software as a service level, people who are using software as a service kind of don't even need to know anything about the system that they're using. And of course, we all do. Anyone who uses, in fact, Google Hangouts right now, the thing that we're using right now, that's an example of a cloud-provided service, right? And none of us are aware of how it's implemented, and hopefully none of us care too much.
I think that. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I think that's absolutely right. The technology that I work on, particularly IBM Cloud, is a crucial part of that. Is that it is a REST API technology running over the HTTP protocol, and what that means is, as long as your application hosted on whatever device, be it a large computer or a small mobile phone, as long as it's able to talk HTTP, which of course it can, you will be able to interact with this cloud technology because you don't have to worry about the implementation that's taking place at the far end. So, yeah, absolutely right.
Fantastic. So, any more for that particular question? Okay, let's wave the TARDIS of the TARDIS of Doom onto the next one. And so, here's a biggie. How does cloud technology help foster innovation? Steve, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. So, for me, what cloud technology has really changed is just how accessible stuff that previously was only accessible to enterprises has become. I mean, I work in messaging. So does Matt. I think we'll be talking about that a bit more about what that means later. But that opens up possibilities for some really cool architectures for some for new types of apps that previously just weren't possible. And up until just a few years ago, that kind of stuff was only accessible to big enterprises, to big companies, to big teams with big infrastructure teams who could set up all the required infrastructure, who could set up the machines, the servers they needed to access that. But as of literally just in the last year or two, that kind of stuff I can now get just as a bedroom developer, just as someone coding in my own time, just as someone working at a hackathon. I can get that in one button press. I can get what previously took an infrastructure team, what took hours and weeks of time to set up, I can get in one button press. And that's really cool, because all those things which were previously only available to big enterprises, the big companies, are now available to anyone. And that, I think, is a really cool thing, because anyone can get a hold of this now.
I'd just like to add, to put some scope on what Steve has just said there. When we talk about a few years ago and big enterprises getting access to a product like MQ, their minimum spend from an annual licensing perspective was $250,000 a year, and today you can get that for on a month's free trial, and then literally pennies. It's based on your sort of message rate. So there's no huge upfront cost that prohibits anybody from using these services now. It's literally just pay as you go. You don't have to license anything in terms of annual fees. Sorry, John's just got a runner from the room. So literally, it's taking it round from being a minimum $250,000 a year spend to something you can just go and grab and use for virtually nothing.
Yeah. As Guy said, that what previously cost you £250,000. I was at a hackathon just this weekend, just using my own personal Bluemix account. I got the same stuff that would have cost you £250,000 for free, just on a free trial. Super easy to scale that up to as I was using it, but just right there, one button press, I got what would have cost $250,000 a few years ago. I got for free, and that is such a cool thing that it enables developers to do stuff that really they just couldn't do previously.
And it's also it's not just the fact that you've got access to these resources at effectively zero cost. It's the fact that you can bring them together. You've got these components that you can assemble really, really rapidly. I think the thing about cloud technologies as a whole is it's a sort of, when you're using cloud, it enables you to go from an idea to implementation at the speed of imagination almost. All limits are off, really.
Yeah, I mean, back when I was in uni just a couple of years ago, I remember thinking I should get a website. I should start sort of running a couple of apps just to sort of show off what I can do as a little portfolio thing. And my first thought, I remember, was first thing I'll have to do is I'll have to buy a server and put it under my bed, and I'll have to run quietly there forever, or I'll have to start paying. I believe the plan I ended up going with was something like £100 a year. But now again, that's one button press. That's scaling as I do it, and that's much more accessible than it was even just a few years ago, and that's a really cool thing.
Another big advantage is the fact that when you get an idea or a technology that you want to try out, you can do so very, very quickly. You can basically say, I want to have a component that's going to be able to do this and this and this and this. And it's often said that one of the quickest ways to do development and learn things is to be able to fail fast. And what that's basically saying is, let's try it. Does it work? Yes, no, move on, that sort of thing. And the ability to be able to take these different components and assemble and work with them really, really rapidly, discarding them quickly if they don't work, but building on them if they do, is a hallmark of what enables you to come up with these ideas and progress them really, really quickly. That's what it means by fostering innovation.
I think that one last thing I'd say is you bring all this together, and I'll going right the way back to the scale up thought that we were talking about originally, and we're at a point now where I think it's amazing small startups can innovate fast, and unlike in the past, there's nothing to prevent them scaling up to the kind of size of customer base that could very rapidly challenge big companies, because they can just rent more server space as needed, and it changes the speed at which not just the speed at which you can innovate, but the speed at which a company can actually grow, and that's really new. That's really, really new.
A great example of how individuals can become have that much influence in a short space of time is a hackathon we went at a couple of years ago now, and there was a guy who came from Portugal, and back then they had a problem with forest fires, and quite severe. And one of the problems was that it was hard to get overall visibility of the spreading of the fires, and it was in danger because it's very difficult to fly over an enraged forest fire because of the smoke and the conditions. And within 1.5 days, this guy had managed to create 3 or 4 drones that are able to fly within a uniform pattern and connect to each other to pass some telemetry on what they were actually saying, and then relay that down to a ground station. And he was going to take that to the Portuguese government and say, why don't you use this rather than try and track forest fires with real people and planes? You can have a swarm of these drones, all of which are controlled automatically, and relay this information back. And he did that within like a day and a half. I've got a slideshow presentation about him. I forget his name, but I often refer to him as the Awesome Hat Man because he had a phenomenal hat. Okay, guys. So, are we happy with the? Have I answered the question of Foster's innovation? Should we move on to the questions that we have on Twitter? I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so we've got a really interesting question from Ard van der Loo. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Ard. He writes, I'm interested, self-service in the cloud, MQ, configs and different parties communicating. Who owns the messages and who owns the configuration? Anyone care to take a stab at that one? That seems quite an involved question.
Yeah, so it might be my Twitter handle is Matthew101. So if we want to take any discussions offline or in more detail, we can certainly do that. So in terms of just a quick overview of MQ Lite in the cloud, you can in Bluemix you can create shared organization areas where you can then provision a self-service messaging system like MQ Lite. And provision that into a shared organization and then work between different individuals on both owning that service, letting Bluemix do all of the maintenance and runtime aspects of it, but co-owning and co-using that service and working on any config and changes you need to do together. And then messaging can be shared completely between the individuals in that organization, depending on who's authorized to join it. That's one way you can provision a sort of a self-service MQ Lite in Bluemix. MQ itself, and I don't know, Ard, if you're an MQ user, so MQ Lite is the way to do things in Bluemix today, and it's a slightly different environment to MQ. MQ is slightly more focused on-premise enterprise. So there's no way to provision a raw MQ environment that you might be used to in your enterprise. But certainly you can use something like MQ Lite as a shared environment to share messaging and config between different users.
So I think that there may be another aspect to this one, and I maybe right, just taking the question as asked. The other aspects being who owns the messages, and I think, and on that one, I think that's a really interesting one. You get fairly rapidly into legal and copyright territory. So if you think about it, there's a very similar kind of question about who owns an email. So if I write an email, I may own copyright on what goes into it, but by sending it to you, I've kind of given you permission to get to read it. Now, you know, all sorts of contractual obligations may ensue as to to govern that relationship. But in terms of ownership, once you've got it, then kind of by implication, if I've sent it to you, then you've got the rights to read it.
Yeah. Actually, folks, I've been a bit remiss. Before we get to the questions, I was going to introduce each of us, wasn't I? And the technologies that we're involved in, and I've forgotten entirely to do that. So let me do that now. I'm going to go, as far as I can see, from left to right. Adrian, would you mind chatting about the cloud technology that you're most interested in and that you work in?
Yes, I'm part of the IBM Cloud team, specifically looking at developer advocacy and documentation within the UK and European area. IBM Cloud is a database as a service technology. It's a NoSQL database capability that works within the cloud, enabling you to store data out there, distributed amongst various different clusters. Fascinating technology, intended to be extremely lightweight and easy to use, but very, very powerful. well. I'm fascinated by the way in which cloud technology can be used to help solve problems and work on applications.
Fantastic. Okay, so Matt, should we go to you, buddy? In fact, I'll open this up to Matt, Guy, and Steve, because you'll work with the same messaging technology. But Matt, you go first and give us a quick rundown on your technologies.
Sure. So I've spent the last couple of years working on IBM MQ Lite, which we've already been talking about so far. And what I specifically work on at the moment is how we link MQ Lite as a nice lightweight messaging API and development environment with the more heavyweight enterprise side of things, IBM MQ. So myself and Steve and Guy have all sort of been involved in MQ Lite for the last sort of year or two. Steve, do you want to fill in on sort of your area of expertise?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Steve Upton, as has been said, work on MQ Lite, same thing as Matt. Primarily I work on the clients, so I work on our Node and Ruby clients, try and get out and talk to developers whenever I can, sort of hear what you guys think, and really what you want, so we can build the best thing we can.
Oh, and we've got a free download as well. I can give it a try. We'll put that in the notes afterwards, so you can download, give it a whirl at no cost yourself.
Sure.
Guy, do you want to round us off on MQ Lite?
Yeah, no problem. So I deal at the other end of MQ Lite, whereas which is the MQ Lite service, which is the Bluemix implementation. So that's really cloudifying MQ Lite and offering up the sort of queue manager facade for applications to bind to a messaging resource and use it as a messaging resource with no administration behind that messaging resource. It's just you want to use a queue, you have a queue. You want to publish to a topic, you have a topic, and you can subscribe to a topic. There's no administration behind it. It's just bind to the service and use the service within your application.
Fantastic. And Rob.
Hi.
Over to you, buddy.
It's Rob Fiffin. So I work on integration. I've been working on integration for a while. And just to be clear about what that means, that's about getting different software systems to be able to communicate with each other. And it's extraordinary how hard the human race seems to work to make that hard to do. And that's all about making sure that if you send a piece of information to another system, that it's able to understand that. So that's about communication protocols, and there are many of those, and communication formats, so kind of the format of the data that gets sent. That's at the very bottom of all of this, and then stacking up on that, making sure that if I send a message to you in the same format, do you actually understand what it means? Do you actually understand the meaning of the data that's in there? So that's the kind of absolute basics, and that's a problem that's been around for decades, and the cloud just kind of adds context to that. So there's some new problems, there's some new solutions it provides, but new problems as well, like not least, you want to do integration across the cloud. Well, how do you communicate back into the enterprise? So that's where cloud integration comes in. That's what I'm focusing on right now.
Sweet. Okay, so let's start with the questions. Sorry about preempting it last time. We had one coming up asking us about Bluemix. Have we all used Bluemix? Is it worthwhile just chatting about how our technologies relate to Bluemix? Steve, you go first with MQ Lite.
Sure. So MQ Lite is a messaging product. It's kind of really simple to explain. It's sending bits of data from point A to point B. Sometimes there's many point Bs. Sometimes there's just one. And what that does is that enables a whole new type of application. So typically when you start writing an app, you've just got one bit of code in front of you. You can deal with that one process, that one bit of code, and things start getting more complicated when you want to start talking between different applications. MQ Lite enables that. MQ Lite enables you to talk between not just different applications, but different applications of entirely different languages. You want to talk between a Node application and a Ruby application, you can. A Node application and a Java application, that suddenly becomes really easy with MQ Lite. So that's really it. It enables you to talk between different applications and do it really simply without having to mess around with low-level stuff, with forking processes, with all that jazz. It just simplifies the communication like that. Sorry, I'm explaining myself terribly. I was taken unawares then, but yeah, it enables some really cool stuff when you realize what you can do. I mean, from the sort of enterprise point of view, that allows some cool stuff. You can have different teams working on the same problem, but I think what we're seeing currently in software is a lot more sort of polyglot programmers, people working with different languages, different problems, just simply using the language that makes most sense. And MQLite allows you to talk between them and just have the most fit for purpose language attacking each part of the problem as you see fit, really.
Fantastic. So guys, we've come to the end of the session. It's 6:30. Actually gone beyond that. We've kind of run to the end of the questions as well, so I'm going to say thank you. Thank you also very much for taking part. What I'll do is in the notes I'll put reference into SlideShare and also to the app download page, so you can guys grab the free technologies, download and give them a whirl, and let us know what you think. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care and goodbye, and thanks everyone. Toodaloo.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.